Hi, I'm Ryan Deeter, a local real estate agent here in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for joining for the Home Buyers webinar. Today, we're going to go over everything you need to know to begin your journey to home ownership. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let me share my screen here so you can follow along with the webinar. Make sure my mug is still up here. Move this around so you can see it. So again, I'm Ryan Deeter. I am a realtor here in Columbus, Ohio with Key Realty. And Key Realty is actually a local Ohio broker that started right here in Ohio. So kind of a cool little thing here. Why did it not let me go? All right, move this around over here. So why you should buy a house? I want to start this webinar off of simply why you should even consider buying a house. Now, our economy is actually been built a lot on home ownership. Home ownership has been a big part of that economy. And so we're going to see why here in a second. But today I just want to start out, if you're renting or maybe you own a home, you're not sure why you even own a home. This is going to hopefully convince you to have the idea that home ownership is very powerful when it comes to our economy and when it comes to building wealth. Okay, moving my face around here. So the benefits of home ownership. First one I want to talk about is equity. So equity is basically the difference between what you own and what you owe. So you subtract what you owe versus what you own, and hopefully, if you own a house, you have some equity. Typically, when you buy a house, you have to put some down payment down and things like that. So you usually have a little bit of equity when you start, and as you pay it off, you get more and more equity. So equity is a very powerful tool. And here in 2019, so the average homeowner in 2019, this is in the country, had $177,000 in home equity. This is a very big deal because in 2008, really the big problem was that the equity wasn't there. Not too many people had equity. When all of a sudden the prices dropped on homes, no one had equity where they could sell their house and get the equity out of their house. And so that's why we had a lot of people go to default on their home. 2019 and now 2020 into 2021 is a different story. A lot of people have equity in their home. And so this is a big part of people's wealth. And in fact, the majority of Americans, actually their equity is the largest part of their savings. So their house and their home is their biggest asset they own because of their equity. And so what's nice about this is that, a lot of times if you get in a pinch or you have a reason or you want to do a project, say you just want to pull some money out and not have to spend your own savings, you can actually borrow against your equity. A lot of banks will let you take out about 80%, up to 80% of your home equity. There's a lot of different programs out there. If you're interested in that, reach out to a local bank. But yeah, it's a great tool to use to do an addition or buy, maybe buy something you've always wanted to buy. And you don't want to take out, maybe retirement savings and things like that. You can actually take out part of your home equity and use that as leverage as well. So that's why equity is such a powerful tool. And it's also one of the main reasons how wealth gets passed from generation to generation is home equity. So that's, why home ownership is such a powerful tool in bridging that gap, and having long-term wealth and equity there. So the second one I want to talk about is appreciation. Appreciation, as you know, we're not building more land in this world. So there's really only one place for prices to go, and that's up and to the right. And so, we've seen times where it's gone down, but it's always on a trajectory throughout history, has gone up and to the right since home ownership has been established. So that's something to consider. There's going to be ups and downs, but for the most part, it's always going to go up and to the right. As long as you're not ever in a place where you have to sell when the crash happens, then you're always probably going to make more money than when you spend when it comes to appreciation, because appreciation rates are typically higher than interest rates. And we'll talk about interest rates. And as long as that's the case, you're most likely going to make money on a home, as long as you don't have to spend too much on repairs and things like that. So the average appreciation in Columbus, Ohio, was about 6%. This is both 2018 and 2019. We were looking at 6%, which is pretty significant. So if you had a home that was worth $300,000 in say 2018, in 2019, all of a sudden it's worth 318 in 1 year. So that's almost, in 5 years, you're looking at, almost 100 grand in equity alone right there. And it's all equity, because appreciation eventually is what you owe or own, and it turns into equity. So that's what's nice about that as well. It builds on your payments as well when it comes to equity. The next one is stability. Stability is a big part of home ownership as well, because when you rent, really who controls the prices is the landlord, and the market shifts. And so, your prices are probably always going to go up when it comes to renting. When it comes to home ownership, you have a little bit more stability because your payment's going to be the same. Your interest rates are locked in for the life of the loan, depending on what kind of loan you have. And we'll get into those details today, but depending on the life of the loan, you'll have an interest rate lock. The only thing that will really change is your insurance payments and your tax payments. Now, if the taxes go up in your area, of course, your payment's going to go up there too, but your actual loan payments on your principal of the home should stay about the same for the life of the loan, which is a nice thing. So here's a little, kind of thing to think about here. So the average rent in Columbus increase was 4.4 a year in Columbus. So the average rent in Columbus is around $1,000 at the time of this recording, and your monthly payment will be increased by almost $50 a month each year. So that's $50 every month. Every year you have a $50 increase a month. So in 5 years, that's almost $9,000 on top of the $1,000 per month that you're total rent payment. So in 5 years, you're paying about just under 70 grand and rent payments with no equity being built. So that's a big factor of, owning a home is not only are you building equity, but you're not spending money on somebody else's equity, essentially, when it comes to renting. And that's what you're doing. You're helping somebody else pay for their mortgage and their payments, whatever it looks like, or helping them build equity on their properties. The last one I want to talk about is tax benefits. There's a lot of things people don't think about when it comes to home ownership, is that there's a lot of tax benefits. This is one thing both political parties actually agree on, that home ownership is a good thing for our economy. And so the tax code and a lot of tax write-offs are built around home ownership, which is another benefit of owning a home. You can see here just a few. Again, I'm not a CPA, so just keep that in your mind. These are not any pro tips. They're just basic things to think about. So your tax benefits is you get mortgage interest deduction, property tax deduction, interest paid on your home equity debt can be deducted, tax-free profit when you sell, there's some stipulations of that, and then tax write-offs for those who work at home. A lot of us are working from home these days, so you get a tax write-off for your home office. But I highly recommend if when you buy a house, it's a nice little thing to get when you get that tax break, but talk to a CPA. Make sure you talk to whoever's doing your taxes about how to get the maximum benefit for owning a home. So here again, just to recap, these are just 4 reasons why. There's some other ones out there too, but these are the big ones to think about: equity, appreciation, stability, and tax benefits. Of just why you should even consider buying a home, or if you're on the fence of like, hey, I'm trying to save to get this, just to give you an idea of the power and the tools that you can be used to buy a house here too. So the benefits of that. So, all right. So there are some challenges. I'm not going to, say that there's not any challenges. There's no downside of owning a home. There are some challenges. So the biggest thing is the responsibility. You have the responsibility of this home. If something breaks, it's on you to fix it. And there's some things that could be costly. So it is, taken out of your equity, you're taking out of your savings if things do, need repaired more often than not. Again, going to the maintenance and upkeep is kind of the same idea there. You are, in charge of upkeeping it, and you got to know what to do there. Oh, let's go back here. Another thing is the markets can change, as we saw, in not too far distant past. We've had markets change. 2008, things changed, and a lot of homes went down in value. Now that's typically a short-term thing if it happens, but if it's down in value and you need to sell at that time, you could end up, having an investment where you actually lose money. Sorry. So that's something to consider. And then hard to move quickly if needed. If you have something change, a life event, say you get transferred to your job, or you just want to move across the country, it can be hard to move quickly. You can't just, end your lease and get out. You have to sell your house and things like that. So just, you're just a little bit more committed to wherever you live, but, the commitment there has its benefits for sure. All right, the next thing I want to talk to you about is kind of give you an ideal example of how to build wealth with a single family home. So this is a great tool and just reminder of, this is why, home ownership is so powerful in our economy. So the first step, to building wealth is to buy your starter home. A home like this is a little, mobile home here, thing like that. You can buy a starter home or a fixer up, and it doesn't, there's, I'm thinking around 250K, which is a modest home here in Columbus, Ohio. You can actually find a pretty nice home in certain areas for $250,000 here in Columbus, Ohio. With a 10% down payment, you're looking at, you know, around 1,100 a month, which is pretty close to that average monthly rent. I mean, so you're paying about the same amount in rent, you know, if you can find a home for that price. So, you know, you get that home and you start making payments on it. You pay and save for your next home. So during this time, you're paying off your home, you're paying your mortgage, and you're trying to save for your next home. And this may not be your forever home, or you know, who knows? You may get lucky in your first home you live in for the rest of your life. And most of us are going to move several times in our lifetime. So what you want to do is you want to continue to pay that house off and try to save as much as you can. And so say you can save $500 for the next 5 years, $500 a month, that is, for the next 5 years. You're going to be looking at, you know, $30,000 in savings. And you can tuck that away for a nice rainy day here. So what you do next is you sell your home and use the profit for your next down payment. So you sell your home. So you sell that $250,000 home because again, appreciation kicks in 5 years, your home is no longer worth $250,000. It's now worth $319 with 5% appreciation, which again is below the average here in Columbus. So it's a modest appreciation. You know, you may get lucky and buy an area that has an 8 to 10% appreciation. You can make more than that. But there's also some cost to sell here in Columbus. So the price to sell, I would probably guess around 9% of your home is going to go to just cost of selling, you know, whether it's agent fees or tax, not taxes, but you know, title fees and things like that. So you're looking at around 287,000 and some change there. But you got to pay off. You got to remember, that's not 100% yours. So you still owe money on this $250,000 house because you haven't paid it off yet. Again, your principal on your loan is still around 204. So you bought it at 250, you had a down payment of 10%. You've been paying it off for 5 years. So what you owe the bank now is 204. So you just subtract that from your 287. You're looking at an $83,000 payout when you sell your house, or an equity essentially is what you had in equity. Remember, we talked about saving. So you use that money to buy your next home with the savings and your profit from the sale. So here's your next home that you can buy now with that $83,000 plus that $30,000 that we talked about saving. You now have $113,000 and some change. So you now have over 20% down payment for a $500,000 home here in Columbus, Ohio, which is a very, very nice home here in Columbus. So, so now just within 5 years, you can find that house, and most people can find a forever home here, what we call a forever home, for $500,000 here in Columbus. But the key is you buy what you can afford. You always want to stay within your monthly budget. I always really recommend focusing on the monthly payments versus just what the home's cost is. So figure out what the monthly payments you're comfortable with and go from there as well. So at $500,000, 20% down with a 3% interest rate, which is roughly where interest rates are right now, you're looking at about $22,000 per month. So you about doubled your payments per month. But as long as you're comfortable with that, if your payment, if you find you're comfortable with that payment, that's the key to figure out what are you comfortable with monthly, what can you afford to do with that. And then the key to building wealth is that you can stop there, you can repeat, or you can retire or focus on retirement, focus on paying off the loan, paying off that $500,000 house, and being debt free. And so, or you can continue to do that process. Again, here's what that looks like if you continue that process. Your home at $500,000 in 30 years, we were worth $2.2 million. So think of that, just think of that for a second. $500,000 home in 30 years would be $2.2 million. And so, but here's what you'll pay. You only pay, sorry about that, jumping ahead there. You only pay $859,000 and some change with 4% interest. So I raised the interest rate there a little bit for you. But your equity then, so when when you sell that home, you're looking at a payout of $1,340,652. So that's a pretty large payout, for $500,000 home, you're making almost, $1.3 million. So not a bad little payout there. And in 30 years, obviously inflation will kick in and that won't be worth as much as it is today, but it'll still be worth a good chunk of change. nothing to really, to bat an eye to. So again, say you repeated that process. You sold your $500,000 home and bought a $700,000 home. So if you bought a $700,000 home in 30 years, it'd be worth over $3 million, and you can pay $2.1 million over the life of the loan, creating a $1.8 million in equity. So again, just another example of how people can build equity with a single family home here, and it's not not the only way people can do it, but it's just one way people can build this equity. And most people won't start, won't even get up to the don't need to get up to the $700,000 home. The $500,000 home, or even the $250,000 home, will build a good amount of equity for you here in Columbus, Ohio. So just keep that in mind. And really any market, this really goes for any market. So if you're watching this outside of the Columbus, Ohio market, this really goes for any market. So here's a review step. We kind of went through that quick. So I want to review the steps real quick. So the first step is just to find a way to buy that first home, find a way to get in the door, and find a monthly payment that works for you, that you can maintain and still maintain the house as well. So you buy that, and then you pay and save for your next home after you pay for that, with roughly, say within 5 years. You sell your home, use the profit for your next down payment, and then you have over a 20% down payment for that home. And you buy your next home with the savings and profits from that sell. And again, then you just pay for what you can afford. It's pretty simple, but it's so powerful as well. So I don't want to just skip over it just because it's simple. It's a very powerful tool to building long-term wealth for you and your family. So again, if you have any questions on this, I'm happy to go over this in more detail, kind of show you more examples, and kind of go over the numbers in more detail as well, where I came from. And I'm happy to kind of show you, exactly what the numbers look like. This is just big picture idea for now. And so again, you do have to consider other payments and things like that, like taxes, insurance. And I actually threw the taxes and insurance payments roughly into those monthly payment calculations as well. So just so you know. All right, so the next step, one of the biggest hurdles of buying a home is actually qualifying for it. So there's several things we have to consider when qualifying a home, or qualifying for a home. So the three main ones that I'm going to go over today are your credit score, your down payment, and your debt to income. These are things that every lender is going to look at when they're seeing if you're able, if they want to give you money to buy a home. So the first one I want to jump into here is your credit score. So this is why, when you open up credit cards or whatever you do, it's good to have a credit score. It's better than not to have, if you have no credit, a lender's not going to have no history on you to whether they should lend you money or not. So actually having a credit score is better than not. Having a good credit score is important though. And again, every lender is different. So I do want to indicate that, I'm not a lender. So I do want to just make that clear that every lender is going to be a little different. So if you're on the edge of one of these numbers, you're like, I might qualify, reach out to several lenders. They may be able to, actually have some cases where they accept stuff that's lower, or things like that, or maybe a different program that can help you get in the door as well. So again, I want to start, there's several different kinds of lenders, or not lenders, but different kinds of loans. And here's just some of the major ones that are the most common. The most common one is the conventional. This is where the conforming loan is what it's called, where really the government agencies are involved, and they have these standards that every lender has to kind of meet to be considered a conventional loan. And this is outside of really outside of cash. This is your most powerful tool to getting in a home, because it's most likely to go through unless hoops to kind of have to jump through. And so the starting point for the conventional loan is 620 credit score. Obviously, anything above that is going to be better. And keep this in mind, that this is actually going to dictate your interest rate as well. So that's something to really consider. So you may qualify for a loan at 620, but your interest rate is probably going to be a little higher than if your score was 720. Or if you had a perfect credit, it's going to be, you're going to get the best interest rate possible, along with the other factors that we're going to consider here. Your FHA is another government program that helps people with lower credit score or maybe some other financial issues actually get in the door of having a house. And so they allow people to have lower credit score. There's going to be a little bit more hoops to jump through when getting the loan. So when in a competitive market, an FHA loan is going to be a little bit harder to get accepted than if you're competing against conventional offers and things like that. So that's a big factor in and which one even if you qualify for an FHA, doesn't mean it's something you should always consider. But a lot of times it's lower down payment, or it can be a lower down payment. It can be lower standards, but it's going to be more hoops to jump through. Take a little longer time to get it. The bank wants to make sure there's no major fixes on the house that you have to have right away. No major costs that once you move in, you're going to have to spend on, because they know you're going to be a little tighter on cash and a little bit less likely to make those payments. So they're going to have probably a higher interest rate as well. The next one's a VA loan. This is for veterans. So if you've served, first, thank you. And second, this is a nice little program that the government actually offers for you. Again, you have to have a little bit higher credit score typically on this one, but as you'll see here in a minute, there's other benefits to a VA loan as well. Again, there are some hoops you got to jump through to get in this. So just because you qualify doesn't mean it's always the best option. So you always want to weigh out your options. Just because you qualify for something doesn't mean it's always the best. And USDA is very similar to VA. USDA is more just rural areas, places like farmland and stuff like that, where people can qualify. Certain areas qualify for this. So if you're buying a home, out in the country or things like that, you can check and see if you qualify for a USDA loan. And those areas are usually less, not always, but usually less competitive. So a lot of times you can get away with this. And again, you need the 640 interest or credit score. There's other benefits. We'll go over the other benefits here in a minute. The jumbo loan is actually, just a higher home loan. So it's just loans that are, pretty high up, and they're called jumbo loans because you're just lending more money. And so again, they're going to make sure that you have a higher credit score if you want to qualify for a jumbo loan. All right, so the next part is the down payment, which this is another part of the hurdle of qualifying for a loan. People need a little bit of money to get in, because the bank doesn't want to give you, you're not going to lend you 100% of the home, but they're getting pretty close to that. So because a conventional loan, you can get in a home for as little as 3%. Now, PMI, your private mortgage insurance, will also be required if you're under 20%. And you've heard people say that you shouldn't buy a house if you don't have 20%. This is where, I want to go back, if you remember, going back to the idea of why home values are so, why equity and appreciation is so powerful, is that even if you don't pay 20% down, 3%, if appreciation rates, are, at 10%, or even 6% like they are right now, and you can get in the home, you're still making more than what you'd spend on PMI. So it's still a very valuable tool. Now, if interest rates are up in the, the 8s and 10s, you're gonna be paying a lot more for PMI, and you're not making as much, and interest, you're not making as much on that appreciation. It may not make sense without 20% down. But in today's world, with interest rates being around 3 to 4%, it's even under 3 sometimes, it definitely makes sense financially to get in the house and still pay PMI. So don't let that be a barrier to you. If you're thinking, oh, I don't want to pay PMI, I've got to get 20% down, that's no longer, financially the best option, in my opinion, at least. Again, FHA, so at FHA, you have to have 3.5% down. So, and some programs that'll help with that. Lenders, talk to a lender, because sometimes they actually have ways to get around these percentages and give lender credits and things like that. So every lender is different again. So always ask, and if you're close, I would definitely recommend, interviewing a couple lenders, and I'm happy to help you there if need be. Again, a VA, and this is why VA and USDA, as you see here, are so powerful, is that they actually don't require any down payment. And so you can actually get a home for, get the actual loan for 100% of the value of the home. And again, that's 100% of the value, not what you offer. The banks do what's called an appraisal on the house to see what they think it's worth. And that's what the amount of loan they will actually let you lend. So just keep that in mind. But the USDA and the VA allow you to have no down payment, which is a nice program. There's just a few more hoops you got to jump through. Otherwise, happy to talk more about those if you'd like. Reach out to me. A jumbo loan just depends on your lender. These are really lender based, because they're so, they were doing a lot of these back before 2008, and and this is where it really got in hot water. So they're really just kind of more cautious on this. So it's gonna be lender to lender. But just again, reach out to your lenders and see if you're looking at just a high dollar, probably over $500,000 home, here for your first home. That's something to consider, is doing a jumbo loan with a lender. All right, the next thing is your debt to income. This is a big part of, are you qualified? Are you able to make your payments? Is basically what the lenders are looking for. Do you have enough income coming in to make your payments? Because every lender is different again, but most of them like to see a 30%, 36% or less. Of course, less would be great, of debt to income. Basically, of how much do you owe? How much are your income are you saving versus how much are you able to do you have to spend on debt? And so they want to see you have less than 30%, 36% of debt. So the rest, that'd be ideal. Now I've seen it up to 50%. I've seen it more. It depends on a lot of factors. So don't hold this as, if you don't reach this right now, don't think this is the barrier that's going to get you, you shut the door. Ask around, let's talk, let's find ways to see if there's a lender that can work with you. But the big factor also is your job stability. So if you just started a job and maybe you're making this or close to this, but you just started your job, they may want to wait for a couple months to make sure you have a little more seasoning on that job and make sure that it's a little bit more stable. Or say you're a independent contractor, that they're going to want to see a couple years probably of you bringing in some income, so they can have some proof that, hey, this is not just a short-term thing. They can see some long-term some long-term income coming in there. So those are things to consider. Again, here's the three things when qualifying for a home, the three major things that are going to be either the barriers or just things that are going to help you qualify for a home. And I want to go back to the down payment. And this is a lot of times, a lot of people's hard part is the down payment. They think they have to have so much. And something to consider is that you can actually use gifts from family or close relatives that they can actually gift you money for a down payment. And they just have to be able to track where it comes from. Another thing to consider is you can use retirement payments. You can take a Roth IRA out. Here in Ohio, you can actually do that tax-free with no tax benefit, without having to pay the taxes on your Roth IRA. So that's something to consider. If you're, a little tip that if you're thinking about buying a home, start maxing out your Roth IRA because you're gonna be able to take that out for your down payment if you want. Just a couple of things to consider there. So again, if you have questions on lending, please reach out. I'm happy to help if I can answer them, or if not, connect you to a great lender here in Columbus, Ohio. All right, the next part I want to talk about is really where the realtor really steps in and is the big part of this, but also just the steps of buying a home. Because where do you start? We talked about the couple of things to start out, but the biggest things that we want to start out is just find someone to talk to, find a realtor in this market. And whenever the markets get competitive, having an ally, having someone that knows what they're doing is the most important thing. And having someone on your side that does this day in and day out is going to be so vital for you getting the home that you want, especially in a competitive market, because you're going to find people that do have that. So the steps to that are, you just find someone you trust. The biggest thing that most people want to know when working with a realtor is it somebody you trust. So find someone you trust that's going to tell you the truth and tell you honestly what's best for you in your case, in your scenario, not just what's best for them. So find someone who knows your market. Obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer, but ask them. These are questions to ask when you're talking to a realtor. Do you know the market? Do you work in this area? Have you worked in this area before? How do you know the market? What's your experience here? And then something that's kind of crazy is find something you get a hold of. If you can't get a hold of somebody for a couple of days in this market, houses go within hours, let alone days. So if it takes days to get back to you, probably you're not going to be your best ally when it comes to finding you a home here in Columbus. So obviously, within reason, if you reach out one time and they're on vacation, give them time to get back to you. But when it comes to helping you find a house, you got to be able to consistently get a hold of somebody on a daily basis. So keep that in mind. And then lastly is something, find somebody you enjoy spending time with. Here in Columbus, it can take some time to buy a house. So, find someone you enjoy, spending time with. It's not necessary, but it's just something it's a good tip for me. If it makes the process that much better, if you like the person you're working with. The next step is get pre-approved. Going through those, when we talked about the qualification steps, actually sitting down or calling a lender and giving them the information they need to say, yes, we can give you a loan on a house up to this amount of money. knowing your budget and things like that. So that's the things when it comes to getting approved is first talk to a lender, just discover what they need. They'll go over the things I went over probably in more detail. And if you have any questions, that's the place, again, ask them as well. And then that's a place to set a budget, figure out where your monthly, budget is. And I highly recommend thinking about your monthly payments, figure out, your down payment and how to get in the house, but then also consider your monthly payments, figure out where your, roughly where your interest rates are going to be. And so, really where what you're going to pay monthly, that is. And so, you can start budgeting and planning for this. And obviously give them all the documents they need so they can prove that what you're telling them is reality. Because they're gonna ask you in person. Here's, write it down. They're gonna say, here, okay, you're kind of qualified, but we got to verify everything. They've got to obviously verify it and have proof of that. So make sure you get those over to them in a timely manner. And again, they'll give you all the the details you need of what they need, pay stubs and tax things and things like that to get those over so they can get you pre-approved as quick as possible. And then lastly, you need a pre-approval letter from the lender. So this is very important because no one's gonna, if you go and look at a house and you fall in love with the house, but you don't have this letter, you're not going to get your offer accepted because no one's going to accept an offer without knowing that they're pre-approved. So that's why this step and this, the pre-approval letter is so important because, you can't buy a house essentially without it unless you're paying cash. And then even then you need a proof of funds letter. So if you do have, if you are paying cash, keep that in mind as well. You just need a proof of funds, whether it's a bank account showing that you have that amount in the account, or a banker can give you a letter saying, yes, you're qualified. You have this much money in your account. So things to consider there and why that's so important. So the next step is just simply setting up an MLS search. I know many of you're probably already looking at Zillow and Realtor.com and all those search sites, which are great and they're fantastic to get you kind of started on this. But the biggest part, about the MLS is that it's what Zillow and Realtor.com are actually using to upload their stuff. So this is actually giving you the source that Zillow and Realtor are actually using. So it's just a little bit more, it's a little more quick. And in a competitive market, that's so important to have updates and to know what's accurate. Because if it's not accurate on here, Realtors, the ones putting the information in here, if it's not accurate, they can actually get fined. And so it's why it's so important for this stuff to be accurate. Zillow is not always the most accurate, or Realtor.com and the others, but they're fairly active and fairly accurate. And if that's what you're comfortable using, it's still a great tool to look at houses anymore. So this is where you also discover your likes and needs. So I always try to, it's always a good idea to write 2 columns. Here's what I like, and here's what we need. I need this. These are things that I actually need, and here's what it would be nice, to have, and try to find as much as you can. Because then you go on the showings. Of course, the next step would, once you qualify, you get the search, you find some houses that you like. The next logical step is actually go look at them. And so that's what you do. You go show them. And after you say you show 5 houses, you fall in, you like 2. As a good realtor, what they'll do is they'll go back and do some what I call market analysis for you. They'll show you what the house is worth. And what I do for my clients is I show you what I think the house is worth if the bank were to do an appraisal on it, but also what it will sell for in this market. So, sometimes what it's worth is not always what it will sell for. People are willing to overpay for houses right now. So that's something to consider. So a good realtor should be able to tell you, here's what's going on in the market, but here's also to consider what this house may be worth. But, again, looking at appreciation rates and here in Columbus, it's not surprising that people are willing to overpay for houses. Then you make an offer. That's, kind of, again, you find a house you like, you say, okay, it makes sense. I like what it's worth. I'll make an offer up to this amount. And there's a lot of things that you have to consider when making an offer. And, when you make an offer, you have to be able to get excited about the house. Of course, you have to have a little bit of emotion, especially on your, if this is, where you and your family are going to live, but you can't get too excited, especially in this market, because, you never know if you're going to get the house or not. So, and again, I like to say this, my job is to get you the best house, not the best deal. When you're looking for a deal, sometimes, you miss out on some of the best houses because of that. And you may find that, sometimes the best deal is not always the best house. Again, so things, once you get in contract, say they accept your offer, you're in contract. So the things you have to agree on before you get in contract are, of course, are the price, the closing date, what stays, what goes, who pays for what, and then, possession of the house or closing, things like that. So those are all things that you're trying to negotiate even before you get in contract, before those are things that, price is not always the biggest factor when it comes to buying a house. Sometimes the closing date or things that go or stay. A lot of times what's happening right now is people want a closing date, maybe, a couple weeks, of possession after the closing date. So those are big factors on whether people's offers get accepted or not. So those are things you've got to consider when making offers. And then, then if you get accepted, the steps, there's several steps of the contract. So the contract, if you, I always like to show my contracts before we even write them, so buyers know what they're getting into. They are lengthy, but there's some basic steps that we got to go over, and just, things that we go for every contract. They're all, we use a standard form here in Columbus, Ohio, if you're working with a realtor, that we use. And so they're all similar. So here's the things that you consider the steps of the contract. You can have it reviewed by an outside attorney if you'd like, a lender. And then you do the lender application, you have an inspection, and then what's called the remedy request is anything the inspection finds that you're not satisfied with, you can ask to be requested or remedied or fixed essentially before moving forward with the house. If not, if the sellers say, no, we're not going to fix them, you can decide that you're not going to buy this house and what's called, walk away from it within a period of time. And then the next step is, getting the home warranty, figured out, if that's in the contract. And then the bank will do an appraisal saying what their house is worth, closing disclosures, all that's fun. There's a lot of disclosures you got to have, and we'll walk through all that together with you. And then the last thing is to walk through before the closing. You do a final walkthrough before you buy the house, make sure the house is in the condition that you saw it the first time and the condition you expect it to be in, making sure that the previous owners didn't do a bunch of damage moving out of it. And if so, you need to figure out a way to fix that real quick, because the closing day is right on the corner. So the next thing is the closing day. Settlement is also what it's called. That's where you'll sign a bunch of documents. You actually sign the deed in your name, and the title company will actually record all that for you. So it's an official document and all that fun stuff. So on closing day, again, you sign the mortgage information. If you're doing a mortgage, you sign the deed. You should say plan on an hour anymore. It's taking less. And if your possession and closing date are the same day, you get the keys, and that's where you move in and celebrate. That's the big day. You celebrate afterwards. You got through all those hurdles, and you made it to the end, and it can be daunting, but this is where you finally take a big deep breath and see that it was all worth it. So again, the next thing you do is celebrate. You move in, you set up utilities. Make sure you set up your electric, water, heat, gas, all that fun stuff. And what I actually provide for a lot of my clients is a housewarming party. So, if you want to schedule, if you work with me, that's something I offer. The housewarming party is we invite all your friends, family, neighbors to come out and then just enjoy and show off your new home, and you enjoy it. And eventually, of course, you sell it back with me. And here's the housewarming party made easy. All you have to do if you work with me is all you have to do is pick a date, make a list of people to invite, and I'll take care of the rest for you. Now, obviously, if you're watching this during the COVID, we've kind of put these on hold, but once it picks back up, we'll allow that to, we'll honor that and do that whenever you're ready. Again, if you have any questions, I want to pause just for a second to say, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Write them down for me so you don't forget them as you're watching this too. This here. Again, I want to talk a little bit about the Columbus market. So to kind of wrap up here, the Columbus market is very, it's one of the hottest markets in the country. I think at one point it was the hottest market in the country. And I think Boston and Columbus and some of the other mid-major cities are really competing for that. I don't know if you call it an award, but that title of the hottest market in the country. So there is some things to consider. And obviously, I'm recording this during a COVID, when we have another spike here. And so, but real estate has been deemed essential, and real estate actually has not, only increased, but it's also the appreciation values have even gone up even higher, around the 9 to 10% since 2019 to 2020. And I don't see that, slowing too much down in 2021. Obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but I can see rate or appreciation continue to climb because we have a shortage of homes. There's not enough homes in the market for as many buyers as there are out there. So there's plenty of buyers. So again, there's still buyers out there that want their own home. they want to move out of the apartment complexes that they're not able to use, and they want their own home with their own space and things like that. So still plenty of buyers out there. So if you have a home to sell, this is a great time to sell a home. But it's still a great time to buy because of interest rates being so low. And as in the example I talked about, those examples are still true in this market. Still there are still homes in the market. There's not as many as normal for this time of year, and that goes throughout the whole year. But prices have increased. What's nice about it is the interest rates have decreased. So even though prices have increased, interest rates continue to stay low, and since 2019 has even gone down, making your monthly payments relatively the same. So that's why people are still buying houses very quickly here in Columbus, is because the monthly payments are still very similar to what they were a year or two ago, because interest rates have gone down. So keep that in consideration. Even though you think that prices seem to be climbing so fast, that the monthly payments are not climbing nearly as fast, making it very if you can get in the door, making it still very affordable for people to have houses here in Columbus, and why we're seeing such a hot market here. All right, you can see here is just a great graph of the average price points here in Columbus, Ohio. Starting out 95 to 2019, you see in 1995 that the average price point was 120,000, and today it's sitting at 240. So a pretty significant increase in just a short period of time. And you can see here we had a little dip back in the 2008 crash, but again, it just corrects itself. And again, I don't see this slowing down anytime soon. We may flatline eventually or slow down some eventually. But with the current market conditions that we talked about, with not enough houses on the market and so many buyers, even we thought COVID would be a reason for it to slow down. It's actually just sped things up. So you never know, what's going to happen. But right now, we don't see a slowdown. If anything, we see that just continue to go up to, quickly. Looking at 2020, because this is only 2019. 2020 would actually probably be higher on this graph. We continue to go up. So just a good reminder of appreciation rates and building equity. Even if you didn't pay anything off at 120, you're now in several years you're now looking at 240. So 120, you've doubled your equity. Just in 20 years here. So or 25 years essentially. So not too bad there. Again, if you're interested in learning more about the market, because it is so day by day, really month to month here in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm happy to give you a free market consultation, let you know what the market conditions are here in Columbus. Always happy to chat about that. Feel free to give me a call, 614-641-0526, or even send me a text, and we'll take some time just to talk about that. Well, thank you for joining us. That's the end of the show here. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Always happy to answer any questions related to this webinar or anything else, anything related to real estate, really. Always happy to take time to talk to you about it. So thank you for joining us again. Again, I'm Ryan Deeter with Key Realty, and my goal is to help you find your first home, your second home, third home, whatever it may be, to help you build wealth here in Columbus. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you with any of your real estate needs. Again, I'm Ryan Deeter. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.